Maul Shadowlord isn't just telling a story about crime syndicates and survival in the Empire, it's setting up a very specific character arc. And if you've watched enough Disney-era Star Wars, you can already see exactly where it's going. Not just with Maul, but with Devon, Lawson, and honestly the entire structure of the show. This isn't just random storytelling, it's following a pattern. The inevitable death that changes everything. There's one moment I'm almost certain is coming before this season ends. Devon's master is going to die, and it's not going to be subtle or ambiguous. It's going to be a direct, violent and personal. And more importantly, it's going to happen while he's protecting Lawson. That part matters because it ties everything together. This isn't just about removing a mentor figure, it's about making that loss mean something. If he dies defending Lawson, then suddenly Lawson isn't just some side character in Devon's journey. He becomes part of the reason her life falls apart. And I don't think this is going to be some random Imperial officer or faceless threat. This has Inquisitor kill written all over it. Specifically, someone like Marok stepping in and decisively ending that fight. Not a close battle, not a heroic last stand, just a clear reminder of how dangerous the Empire really is. Because the show hasn't fully sold that yet. It's hinted at it, danced around it, but it hasn't delivered that crushing moment. And this is where it does. That's the trigger. That's the thing that breaks Devon, pushing Devon into the dark side. Once that happens, the next step is almost too predictable. Devon doesn't process it, she doesn't grow from it. She falls, and not slowly either. This is going to be a sharp turn, the kind where you can see it happening in real time and think, yeah, there's no way she's coming back from that easily. Because from her perspective, everything lines up perfectly. The Empire took her master. The planet's security forces played a role in bringing the Empire. The galaxy keeps taking from her, and the only person offering her any kind of control over that pain is Maul. That's the key. Maul doesn't just show up as a villain here, he shows up as the answer. And if the show commits to that, this could be the most interesting version of Devon we get. Angry, unstable, powerful, and actually choosing the dark side for reasons that make sense. Not because she's evil, but because it feels like the only way forward. It's very similar to what we saw with Cal Kestis in Jedi Survivor. The moment where rage starts to feel justified, where tapping into the dark side doesn't feel like a fall, it feels like clarity. And that's where this story has real potential, if it actually commits to it. The Disney pattern and why it might undercut everything. But here's the problem. We've seen this exact arc before, multiple times. A Force user falls into darkness, taps into rage, gets stronger because of it, and then pulls back at the last second. Not because of consequences, not because they lose something they can't get back, but because they realise it's not who they are. And that idea works. Once. But now it's becoming a formula. Cal, Ezra, Reva, Ben Solo, all different characters, all different stories, but all hitting the same beats. Temptation, fall, brief embrace, and then rejection of the dark side before it fully defines them. And Devon feels like she's heading straight down that same path. Because let's be real, if she does fully embrace the dark side, if she actually commits to Maul's way of thinking, that changes her permanently. That's not something you can just walk back from in a single episode. But this is Disney Star Wars, and because of that, I think we're going to see her defeat the Inquisitor, probably Marok, using that anger, that rage, that dark side power. And that victory is going to be what snaps her out of it. Not the consequences, not the cost, the victory. She wins, realises what she had to become to win, and pulls back. And that's where this risks feeling repetitive rather than impactful. Maul's role, the only character who doesn't break pattern. While all of this is happening, Maul is doing something very different. He is not changing, and that's what makes him so effective in this story. He doesn't have a redemption arc hanging over him. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't question whether he's going too far. He knows exactly who he is. Which is why, no matter what happens with Devon, Maul is going to come out of this season exactly where he needs to be. Stronger, more established, and closer to rebuilding his criminal empire. Because that's the real goal here. Everything else, Devon, Lawson, the Empire, that's all part of the process. But Maul isn't here to grow, he's here to win, and the show makes that pretty clear. Every move he makes is calculated, every alliance is temporary, and every character around him is either a tool or a future problem. If you're enjoying the Star Wars deep dive, it's practically all we do here, so you might want to stick around. How Devon escapes, and why it won't be her choice. If Devon does turn back to the light, the question becomes, how does she get away from Maul? Because realistically, she shouldn't be able to just walk away, not after everything. So the only way that works is if something bigger interrupts the situation. And there are really only two options that make sense. The first is Vader. If Vader shows up, everything changes instantly. Maul isn't the biggest threat anymore. Survival becomes the priority, and in that chaos, Devon gets her chance to escape. The second option is the Grand Inquisitor arriving with overwhelming force. Multiple Inquisitors, stormtroopers, a full-scale operation. Not a duel, not a standoff, a sweep. And honestly, that might be even more likely, because it keeps the focus on the Empire as a system, not just a single character. Either way, the outcome is the same. Devon doesn't leave because she beats Maul, she leaves because something bigger forces both of them to scatter. And that's important, because it keeps Maul intact as a threat. Lawson, the character that should die, but probably won't. Lawson is in a really interesting position right now, because from a storytelling perspective, he should die. By the end of the season, I believe he will have the emotional weight. He has the connections to both Devon and the larger conflict, and his death could actually push the story forward in a meaningful way. Even just the fact that he has tried to stand against Maul means that he should die, but I don't think they're going to do it, at least not yet, because Lawson still has unresolved threads. His ex-wife, his son, his past, and whatever secrets he's clearly holding back. That's not the kind of setup you cut off early. If anything, I think he survives this season, but not cleanly. And there's one storyline that feels almost inevitable: betrayal. This character is in Lawson's orbit right now, someone he trusts for information, and that's exactly the kind of setup Maul thrives on, because Maul doesn't attack directly unless he has to. He manipulates, he corners, and he forces people into impossible situations. So what happens when he finds that contact? He won't kill them, he will use them, force them to set Lawson up, force them to choose between their own survival and Lawson's trust. And eventually they try to fix it, but it will be too late. That's the kind of story this show is building toward. Not just conflict, but consequences. And if that character dies trying to make it right, it reinforces exactly how dangerous Maul is without needing a massive fight scene. If Maul really wants control over Lawson, there's one move he hasn't played yet: his son. Because once that becomes part of the equation, everything changes. Lawson isn't just making decisions based on survival or loyalty anymore. He's making them out of fear. And that's where Maul is at his best. Not by overpowering people, but by making them complicit. If Lawson is forced to turn a blind eye to Maul's operations to keep his son safe, that's a far more interesting dynamic than just another enemy relationship. It turns Lawson into something else entirely. Not a hero, not a villain, but someone trapped. Potential appearances and what they would actually add. There's also the question of who else might show up, and this is where things could get really interesting or really distracting. Characters like Embo, Asajj Ventress, even Quinlan Vos, they all make sense in this time period. They all have reasons to be out in the galaxy. But the key question isn't, can they appear? It's why. And honestly, Ventress and Quinlan Vos are the only ones that feel like they would actually add something meaningful to Devon's story. Because if Devon is going through the Starkside arc, having someone like Ventress, someone who's already lived that path, could actually challenge her in a way Maul can't. Same with Quinlan Vos, someone who understands both sides of the Force, who's made mistakes, who survived them. Either of these characters could also help Devon to join the path once she escapes from Maul. That's how you make those appearances matter. Not as cameos, but actual story-building, meaningful appearances. the pacing problem, and why it's holding the show back. Now, stepping back from the story itself, there's one issue that's been pretty consistent so far: pacing. The show isn't bad. In fact, there's a lot to like, but it feels like it's holding back. Episodes that are purely setup, purely world building, purely moving pieces into place, they're fine on paper, but when you're waiting a full week for each one, they start to feel underwhelming. And that's not really a writing problem, it's a release problem, because this kind of story would benefit massively from being released all at once. If every episode dropped at once, those slower story building chapters wouldn't feel like a problem. You'd just move on to the next one. The momentum would carry you through. But when you wait a week for an episode that doesn't push the story forward in a big way, it sticks out. It feels like nothing happened, even when technically a lot did. And I get why they don't change it. Keeping weekly episodes keeps people subscribed longer, keeps the conversation going, keeps engagement steady. But creatively, it doesn't always serve the story. It creates tension. And this is one of the cases where you can feel that. What this show is really building toward. So when you put all of this together, the direction feels pretty clear. Devon will lose her master, fall to the dark side, align with Maul, tap into that power, and then pull back before it fully defines her. Maul continues building his empire, untouched by the emotional arcs around him. Lawson gets pulled deeper into the conflict, possibly betrayed, possibly compromised. And the Empire escalates, not as individuals, but as an overwhelming force that reshapes everything. That is the structure. The real question is whether the show commits to the consequences of these actions, or falls back into familiar patterns. Because the difference between those outcomes is huge. One gives us a story that actually means something, and the other just gives us another show we've seen before. And honestly, I'm curious about how you feel about this. Not just the predictions, but the format itself. Do you prefer the 1 or 2 episodes a week where you can build the anticipation? Or would you rather it all drop in one go so you can binge watch it? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe and let's uncover the galaxy's greatest secrets together. Thanks for watching.